Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of our video series on virtue. So today, as I continue this series talking about virtue, I want to talk about, uh, give a basic overview to better understand virtue of the what might be called the anatomy of the soul, the human soul. And this is drawing upon uh, Greek philosophy, which has been taken up into Christianity, especially by St. Thomas Aquinas and so forth. In understanding this operation of the soul, this anatomy of the soul, helps us understand virtue and how it works in our life to help us be better human beings and to live a life of happiness and fulfillment and integrity. Um, so and so, what I want to talk about. So basically, there's three basic parts of the soul, components of the human soul: the intellect, the will, and the passions. Oh, and as I said, this comes from Greek philosophy and St. Thomas Aquinas, but also there's in various forms of modern psychology really takes up and formulates this idea in various ways. But so the basic idea is we have an intellect, a will, and we have the passions. So the passions or the appetites. And now I will say St. Thomas Aquinas, I think, breaks the passions into two categories and says there's four parts of the soul, but I'm not going to go into that that level of detail here. But basically, how the human soul works, how you basically operate it is you have passions, which are the place of your desires, your appetites, your hunger, and then you have your intellect, which looks for the good, the thing to sort of fulfill that desire and apprehends, is this the thing to fulfill this desire or not appropriately? And then the will is sort of the force in us that moves us towards that. So an example of how they work together. I have the passion of hunger. That hunger might come up in me. Okay, I'm hungry. All right. Well, then I see this thing over here, this sandwich maybe, and my intellect apprehends, okay, this is something that will satisfy the craving of hunger. And so I apprehend it's good enough that I, by my will, move towards that thing. That's kind of the basic interworking of how our soul more or less works. Now, the problem is we as human beings are disordered. We, because of the fall of humanity, our sinful nature, that we tend to have a disordered desire. It is that our passions, our appetites, our cravings sometimes tend to dominate our intellect and will, or that we have a weakened intellect, that we don't appropriately apprehend the good, or we have a weak will, that maybe we know what is good, but we just lack the oomph, the chutzpah to do it, And then all sorts of problems comes when there's the disorder of the soul. Just like when all the systems in your car don't work right, all sorts of problems happen. When the things in our body, when the various systems in our body, digestive, cardiovascular, respiratory, when all those systems don't work right together, we get sick and ill, and things don't work right. And it's the same with our soul. When these things don't work appropriately together, it's when we have lots of problems. So if we're just dominated by our cravings and passions all the time, then we'll just give in to every craving and whim that we have, and we're kind of like animals, We don't know how to appropriately channel that. I'm hungry. Oh, look, there's a whole 3 pies sitting here. I'm going to eat them all. That's a example of a disordered desire. Yes, we apprehend there's some good in there with our intellect, and our will moves us towards that. But we know that, of course, obviously, if you eat all those things, if you're just dominated that way by the craving, and things don't work right. So we have to put everything in their proper place. And many times the issues come with our passions. Certainly we have to inform our intellect and strengthen our will. So for example, if I eat 3 pies or 10 cookies, like I'm hungry, I apprehend that's a good thing. Well, as I grow, maybe as a kid, I don't know any better. But as I grow and learn more about nutrition, I form my intellect to be able to better understand what is good and is better for me. And so maybe eating 10 cookies isn't enough, or isn't good for me, or 3 eyes. So, I apprehend that maybe just a little piece will satisfy the craving, and I have the willpower to move towards that, but not to be dominated by the craving, by the passion. So the passions, the appetites, the desires we have, even though they're disordered, they're not bad in and of themselves. Our desires are sort of the bridge of connection. Our passions are sort of the connection between our spiritual self, our soul, and our physical realm through our body. So I'm hungry. I have the passion of hunger. Good, because I need to eat to survive. I'm afraid. Well, good, because if I have the passion of fear, then it's probably because there's something that could potentially kill me. So I need to be afraid. So these aren't bad things in and of themselves. Or someone slaps me and I'm angry because an injustice was done to me. Okay, good. Now, the problem is we just can't always just respond in the moment. Certainly, there's occasions I'm afraid, I run away. But okay, there's a spooky thing. There's a loud noise. Now, I could just go run away screaming out of my house because I have the passion and then I just react. Or, okay, I process there's a sound, but then I have to apprehend what is the source of the sound. And then, with my will, determine what is the best course. Or with my intellect, then move my will to the best course of action. Okay. So, to the passions. So we have to discipline, especially our passions, our cravings, our desires. Because many times that's where the point of temptation comes in. That we have to discipline our passions. A good analogy, since I'm on an analogy kick right now, is sort of like a fire in a fireplace. Our passions are like a fire in the fireplace. Fire is good. Fire, it heats the home. We can cook food over it. It gives light to the home. But if that fire is not properly ordered, contained in its boundary of the fireplace, bad things are going to happen. The house is going to burn down. And it's sort of with our soul as well. We just indulge our every desire all the time in whatever way, in these skewed ways. It's going to destroy us. Ultimately, we're going to end up miserable. Even though we may, in the moment, feel great, There was this movement in, especially the 60s, that came out of this idea that if it feels good, do it. Just mindless self-indulgence. Just do it. Well, unfortunately, if you practice that theory for a while, you'll quickly learn, at the end of the day, if you live that way, you're going to be miserable. Because it's not how we're meant to live. And the problem isn't that we desire too much. Rather, it's that we tend to desire not enough, that we settle for a lesser desire or lesser good at the sacrifice of a greater good. Rather, it should be the other way around. That sometimes we sacrifice the temporary or the lesser good for the sake of a greater good. And this is what we're all about, orienting ourselves. This is what virtue is all about, so that we can want what is good in the right way and in the right measure. A cookie is a good. It's not bad. We have to have it in the right way and the right measure. Because if we don't, then we'll be unhealthy and miserable. Okay, so we have to discipline. So we form our intellect, we have to strengthen our will, and we discipline and rein in our passions. And we especially do this in certain seasons. We do, as Catholics, we have a season of Lent, penitential practices that we do, practices of self-denial and of fasting. We have seasons of fasting, especially during Lent. And then during the ordinary time, Fridays are still supposed to be a day of sacrifice, penance, and or fasting of some form in various ways that takes place. Ash Wednesday, Good Friday. If you want to learn more about fasting, I included a link with my homily about fasting, about why we fast. Yes, part of it is disciplining ourselves, but there's other reasons as well, so you can look at that. So virtue is all about just forming our soul, disciplined habits of our soul towards what is truly good, understanding what is truly good, and then moving towards that. So again, because we want what's good in the right way, we want what is truly good and in the right way and in the right measure. Because when we just indulge our cravings, our whims, we ultimately become enslaved to those things. It's a vice. It becomes a vice for us. And what the word vice literally means, something that grips us. Like a vice in a shop that you crank and it clamps down on a thing in place, holding it in place. And so virtue is not a vice, it's the opposite of vice. It frees us. It's all about ordering ourselves rightly so we can operate rightly and we can fully apprehend what is the truest good to move towards it so that we can be a force of good in the world. Because the final analogy I'll use is like a car engine. Car engine is basically a controlled explosion of fire. Well, if that explosion is not properly channeled and ordered, well, the car is going to blow up and it's not going to move. So this is all about ordering ourselves so that we can move and live as we were made for, to be a force, an agent of good in the world, rather than an agent of misery, chaos, and evil. Okay, so we're going to unpack next episode more about what are virtues and vices and getting more in depth into that. Thank you for watching this video series. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in the next episode, whatever that is. Peace.